Welcome.
Thank you. Great. Let me just say that if you're comfortable having your video on, I invite you to do that because it allows you to drop in a little bit more and for us or me to see you. And you may be in a situation where that's not doable, and I understand. Is everybody familiar with Zoom? I mean, it is the new go-to right now. This is where we're living, right? Anyone need any Zoom orientation? About the two things I want to just tell you is gallery view and speaker view up in the top right. And I'm going to invite you to put it on to gallery view right now, so you can toggle between the two. When I'm just speaking, you probably want to be on speaker view so you can see me, but then if you go to gallery view, you can just sort of take in that you're not alone here. And there are 18 of us. There'll probably be some more. There certainly were more that signed up, so we may get some others joining us. And that's a big piece of what I think we're doing right now, as many communities are doing, and certainly I'm doing in the work that I do with women, is gathering together, that we are not alone. And this is really important to anchor and feel, because we don't have that somatic reassurance that we used to have in being able to be in real life and in the flesh and form with one another or with other friends and going out. And I'm imagining that everybody here is in Washington, so I'm going to assume that to be true. I do a lot of global programs, but I think this is all. Would that be right, Monica and Joni? Is everybody pretty much Washington State here?
I'm not sure. Anyone raise your hand if you're not? Well, I'm not in Washington State at the moment, but how about being based in Washington?
Yeah, okay, great. Well, because when I do global gatherings, everybody's in a different sort of situation. But we're then together in more or less 6 weeks into this scenario, a little uncertain as to what's going to open or not open in May, if anything. We can probably all together appreciate this moment of uncertainty. And what I want to do today, was invited to do, is to really to do a little grounding and centering, first of all, with you, actually practically here in the body today. So we can all just take a moment to arrive. And then I want to talk a little bit about this moment as an opportunity in which we can cultivate resilience and grace, that it actually arises potentially in very challenging times like this, and the way that I see women uniquely poised actually for cultivating a kind of leadership that's needed now in this extremely uncertain time. Then I'm going to invite you to have some smaller, more intimate conversations with one another in triads around a particular question. Because if we were all together in the flesh, I would have you do that too. And this is actually one of the beautiful things about Zoom. I've been using this platform for a few years for my global programs, and I'm very grateful for it, because it allows for this kind of the whole group experience, and then for the more intimate sharing as well. So let's begin. I'm going to drop us into just a little meditation together. So wherever you are, again, if it's possible for you to soften your eyes closed, that would be great. And just let yourself arrive here in this moment. This is one of these great capacities of our brain, that we can multitask, and we're on our computer, so it's very easy to do that. And I actually want you to come inside and drop into this moment in your body. And we can do that as soon as we let the sense of sight go, then you can come into sensation in the body. So feel your feet on the ground. And actually feel how your feet connect. Not just think about that, but feel it. Feel the sensation in the soles of the feet. Feel the sensation in the body of where it touches the chair. And then drop your breath down into your belly. And take a few deep breaths. Since we're all local, we're at the end of our day here. A lot has already happened. And so with each exhale, I just invite you to soften anywhere you're holding. Your own holding patterns are. Maybe that's the shoulders, the jaw, the stomach. Sometimes I like to think about this like those snow globes that you shake and then you let them settle. You're just settling. And in these times, it's so important to know how to settle and ground. That's arriving in the body. And now let's just let your awareness rise up to the heart center, which is right near the sternum, slightly to the left. Rest your awareness there, and energy follows attention, so you're going to gather some energy at the heart. And the first thing I want you to do is just to be present with whatever is there, whatever you're feeling right now. Without trying to change anything. And then I want you to imagine you're breathing in and out of the heart. Taking an inhale and then an exhale through the heart. And then bring someone or an animal or some place, something you love unconditionally. It's uncomplicated. Bring that image to mind. And just let your heart center expand with that feeling, a feeling of love. And it's just like it's a way the heart can open, but it's also a way we know through neuroscience that we can regulate and the heart rhythm and actually get a more coherent heart rhythm. All right, so we've come into the body and we've come up to be present in the heart, and now we can come up into the head center, which likes to be the dominant one. So then just shift your awareness up to between your eyebrows. Some people call that the third eye. And then the first thing I want you to do is just check in with the quality of your mind right now, your mind stream. It's the end of the day. You've probably been thinking and working today. What's the quality of the mind? Maybe you've been in an inspired creative session. Maybe you've been grinding away. Maybe you've been perseverating over something. First thing is just to notice the quality of the mind stream. And then I'd like you to think about mind like the sky, as though the mind is just expanding now, like this great wide horizon. You're making a little more room for inspiration, for an insight, for seeing something you hadn't seen before in our time together. And now just feel this alignment, this deeper alignment between the head, the heart, and we sometimes call it the hara, or the body center. All three centers of intelligence activated and present. Great. So with that, I just invite you, when you're ready, to soften your eyes back into connection here. Great. How do you feel after that little centering? A bit more here? Anybody want to share? Let's see here. God, somebody's waiting to get in. I have to bring them in, I see. Sorry. Yep. Kathy, you were nodding your head there. Can I invite you to share? I'll unmute you there. No, I can't unmute you. You go ahead. Can you unmute yourself? There you go. Yeah, how'd that feel to drop in?
I thought it felt great, but not but. And it also took a while because it's the end of the day. The mind stream was going and going and going. So I had to remind myself that I wanted to take this time and I wanted to do this, and all these other things that have been building up can be set aside.
Thank you. Beautifully said. And actually, that's a great place for me to just kind of come into the conversation, because one of the things I'm tracking right now, and I work with lots of women in my online programs and the other offering things that I run right now, which are all online, of course, is the cycle, like what's happening for us. And since we're all in the same state and more or less, I mean, as in geographics, we're more or less on track together. And one of the things I've noticed now is that the heroic wave which rose up after the pandemic was declared and the stay-at-home requirement set in motion, that many women, perhaps many of you, I could sort of relate to this, were like, okay, we can do this, we've got this, we're going to be on this, we'll just take whatever work we're doing in our company, we'll bring it to the home, we'll do that, and we'll also come up with this really innovative child homeschooling from the kids, and then we'll also somehow produce wonderful meals now, 3 meals a day for everybody, and we'll be negotiating with bandwidth because everybody's online, and I'll still have the same requirements from my company to deliver in the same way, whether I'm working at home or I'm actually in the office and downtown or wherever. And also, it seems, and this is from the women that I'm encountering, and it also seems like, oh, well, then I'm kind of at home now. Maybe this is a good time to teach my daughter French. I've been wanting to do that. And oh, maybe I should also do that. Everyone's learning how to do sourdough starter bread baking. And maybe I should be doing that. And there was this kind of a rise. And what I'm encountering with many women right now is this sort of exhaustion. Like, I can't keep doing this like this. And the reality that this isn't short term. It isn't just, okay, this is inconvenient for 2 weeks, and then we're going to be in some kind of normalcy again. We'll get back to where we were. But that actually, we're in this for the long haul here. And also the reality that the world as we've known it will not be returning. That's hard to let in all the way. And like in any big loss, we don't let it in right away, all of that. There is an appropriate, a kind of denial and resistance to the reality. So there's something about this moment right now of taking time like this, like you were just saying, Kathy, that where we feel like we have so much to do, and we do, many of us do. And the element that gets lost in this is our own connection with ourselves. And a lot of the work that I've done and the research that I did for many years, working with hundreds of women in my university women's leadership programs, was to decode this kind of leadership development path for women. And the first step of that that this came from just seeing again and again and again, where did we have to start in building this new capacity, leadership capacity for women? And it had to do with self-care. It had to do with actually taking care of oneself first. And that's hard to do when there's a lot of suffering. So, you know, when I say, and the topic for today was grace and resilience in these times, my view here is that the core, and this is something I personally discovered, and I'll share with you, the core of that is being able to stabilize yourself. You cannot steady your children, your employees, your people that you work with, your family, your parents who are elsewhere. You can't steady anyone else for any sustainable period of time unless you're steady yourself. How do you do that in this kind of uncertainty? The name of my book is The Way of the Mysterial Woman, Upgrading How You Live, Love, and Lead. And mysterial is a word that I created a number of years ago, and I was watching women they were coming through my programs, and they had this ability to be with uncertainty, or with the mystery, we could say. And that mystery, that uncertainty, is something we have never shared the global requirement for being able to be with uncertainty like this and still have hope, in a way, to hold hope. Now, one of the things that's interesting that I want to just presence for a moment, that is going to shape what I'd like you to talk about in some small groups, is loss and the feelings that we actually have to be able to hold space for in these times. Because when we're just busy doing, and this first heroic wave that came up when everybody was, as I described, many women in that stage, we didn't always have time to really presence what we were feeling. And this is essential. We know this now, thank goodness, through all the good work that's been done around emotional intelligence, where it was sort of the last thing anyone cared about in the old days when I started teaching emotional intelligence years ago. And now pretty much any leadership development program is going to include this element, and that we really do have to presence what we feel. We can't skip over that in hopeful, positive affirmations about what's going to be. Yes, we have to hold a dream for the future, a hope for the future. In fact, you know, that's something another time I could talk more about, because that's, I think, essential to the possibility of a new world emerging on the other side of these very transformative times. But we have to, at this point, be able to hold space for our anger, for the loss that's actually happening, the grief we're feeling, for the fear and the terror. And some of us are actually losing more than others right now. Some of us may have lost jobs, or may know people who've lost jobs, or know people who are in the hospital right now dealing with this, or know people who are on the front lines, or maybe some of you are on the front lines yourself in terms of the medical profession. So everyone's going to have a different relationship to this time, but that experience of something, of losing what we knew, the world we knew, everyone has. I was listening the other day to something Brené Brown was talking about, and I thought it was very wise, where she was talking about this tendency to compare our suffering. So how could I talk about my own losses, or my own pain, or my own fear, when there are people who have lost their jobs, lost their homes, who are going to get evicted, who are in the hospital, you know, on a ventilator? How could I be present to my own feelings? And there's just no ground right now for comparative suffering, is the point she's making and I want to make, which is we have to be able to presence what our own direct experience is and be with that wisely and compassionately. And that's what allows us to hold space for others who are suffering more. So I'd like to just dig a little further into this, because for me, this is the ground of resilience. When 8 years ago, actually I was getting ready to launch our book out into the world, and my husband died very tragically and very suddenly. And within 6 months, I literally lost everything that I had in my life. So I lost my home, my company, my beloved, my community where I lived. Everything was gone. And I was left on this, sometimes I talked about it like when an iceberg breaks away and you're just left standing on the edge of this world going, you know, what the fuck just happened? How could this happen to me? That sense. Now I can see today how it prepares me to be on the edge of this cliff. And what I know, and one of the key things I'm sharing with you here today is that got me through that time in the rebuilding of my life, was knowing many of the things I teach here and taught for years at that time, but the key ingredient of really being able to be closely and tenderly with myself through the process. Not dissociate, not collapse, but actually hold space for what I was feeling, be able to ride the waves of that over time. So the questions I want you to explore a little bit, and then we're going to come back, and I'd love to have a conversation about what comes out of your time, and answer questions and talk more specifically with you, since we're an intimate group here today. Here, I'm just going to put this in the chat, and you can see that. There we go. So first of all, you'll and I do invite you into these little triads, because you'll get a chance to just speak a little bit more intimately there. And I think it's super important right now for you to be able to presence your direct experience. So say your name, one thing you're grateful for in your life right now, just as a way to connect. And then what feelings are you present to in your experience right now? And how are you doing with holding these? And literally name them. This again is something we just know from research. We have to be able to say what we experience. And you know, maybe that's a mixture of relief that you don't have to be going to work right now every day. Maybe it's grief, maybe it's anger, maybe it's fear, it's some combination of all of those, frustration, relaxation, because you're finally, you know, slowing down. And then what's one thing you could do to increase your own self-care and grounding right now? Just one simple thing, and you know, that you already know is nourishing for you. You're just not doing it. Like, if I may just say, Kathy, like for you, it was choosing to stay and come into this time, even though there were a million things pulling you. You know, what are the places that you're going right now to be fed? Is that clear? And I'm going to invite you to take, let's see. How about, and I invite you to do your own timing. So you'll have somebody do timing on your phone of let's say 4 minutes each to do that. And let me put you in, let's see how many are we here, 15, 3. Did you see what I put in the chat? Oh, you know what? I just think I sent it to one person. Thank you. I think I just sent it to you, Joni. So let me put that in the questions in the chat. Thank you, Kathy. And I'll send it to everyone. You have to select that. Everyone. Here we go. Okay, that should be visible now. All right. So there'll be, I'm just going to see what I've got here. There'll be one group of 4. So maybe you could do 3 minutes each, and then the three people in a room, you'll do 4 minutes each. So if you could set your timer. Take a minute first, just to introduce yourselves, and then Now, I want to just say one thing about the listening. We're not trying to solve anybody's problems. That's actually the beautiful thing about some of the work that I do, which is what it is for women to hold space for one another. I call it the receptive feminine. So all you're doing is just listening and presencing what the other's saying. Kind of feel what they're feeling, feel what their experience is. And if you have that kind of listening, you'll find that you say things that you hadn't even thought of before, that kind of come out of that kind of presencing. Okay? Any questions? So I'm going to set this up now. In essence, you're going to come back in about 13 minutes and you'll get a little message to bring you back. I'm going to open the rooms up and you're going to be able to click on the little join room and away you go. Right.
Anyway, thanks for listening, ladies.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. And my condolences. You
Yes.
said you lost your father
Mm.
weekend.
I'm going to just say that I'll come back here now, and there's always sometimes that tender transition from the intimacy of the field into your little group, into the whole group, and it looks like that was a deep share in that one group that just came back, and let's use this time. I hope that was fruitful for you to be able to presence a little more fully your direct experience right now, and to have that loving witness of the other women. And I'd love to hear from anyone who would like to share about your experience and how you're doing right now, and maybe some insight that came from that experience.
I think that was extremely rewarding. So even for someone who is private like myself and holds in emotions, I think that was really, really beneficial no matter who you are. So I appreciated that very much.
What way was it beneficial for you?
Expressing your emotions out loud to people who have absolutely just third parties that are there for you just to listen and have no emotional attachment either way. So I think that was a really nice session.
And did you touch into something, Olivia, that was just you were able to connect with a feeling that was there that you hadn't quite given yourself?
Probably, yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Made you think.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. And Sabrina, it looks like you were about to say something.
Yeah, I just am, I think I feel so grateful to be on this meeting with women who are also most of you appear to be alone too, like me, which is, I don't know, it feels good to be in that community, because I think there could be just a deeper level of understanding of where we're all coming from because of that.
So the women in your group were also quarantined on their own, is what you're saying?
Mm-hmm. Without partners or, yeah, you know.
Yeah, and would you share a little bit about what you were able to present about, I guess, the two things, the experience and then your practices for self-care or self-nourishment, given that you're alone?
Yeah, gosh. Well, I was sharing with Karen and Margaret that I have worked from home for about 11 years. And I am a bit of an introvert and loner, but I don't, I lost my father this past week, and all my parents, my grandparents are passed, and I have no kiddos. I'm divorced and I don't have a partner, and I have a few family members, but they live out of the country or on the other side of the country. So, no pets, that kind of thing. put myself right front and center in nature, that really lifts me up. I do it on a daily basis. I eat healthy, very, very healthy, and that kind of keeps me physically able to kind of move through the day. And you know, I do a daily devotional in the mornings, every morning with coffee, and I meditate for a few minutes. And music has been a gift for me. So that's kind of how I manage.
And coming into this resonant field, right? Coming into this, choosing to come to this, you're into the Grapevine network, which is this a network you've been in before?
Well, you know who introduced me to it? I have held part-time weekend jobs at wineries. So Chateau Ste. Michelle looped me into this group. Yeah, I don't know how they got involved there. Did you found this group?
No, I'm just, Joni and Monica are the founders, so maybe you could, was there a connection with the wineries, Monica or Joni?
Actually,
we had an event out there, and Linda Chauncey and others out at the winery have been very supportive of Grapevine.
And we do an annual Women in Wine event.
yeah, is
So welcome.
anyway. I don't want to take up anybody's.
Well, I think what's key.
I know that.
Yeah, and I think the thing I'm just underlining here is that this coming into resonant fields is super important right now, especially whether you are actually on your own or not, because, and Grapevine is obviously one of those networks, because in my view, that co-regulation is a big piece of the process right now. You get, and you can probably feel, I'm imagining, Sabrina, but you know, from even 4 o'clock till now, there's probably more regulation in your system, even though you've actually, it seems like, held more space for more of what you're feeling. I mean, it wasn't that you weren't feeling, you in your small group, but would that be true, that you feel kind of, there's a settling or grounding for you through this, being with others like this?
I think it's nice because for me, I feel very alone and isolated. So when I'm sharing these feelings with this group right here, I'm realizing that, well, you know, I'm not just the only one. And there's so many similar experiences we've all shared, particularly with me and you, Suzanne. Mm-hmm. And you and I have shared a lot of similar experiences. So just from hearing what you had to say. Yeah, so, you know, I haven't earned any money in 2 months. I've been without work. I'm losing my place. I got to really downsize. So I'm in the middle of a move. Lost my father this weekend. So a lot of stuff going on. Crying daily, for sure. Having trouble sleeping, absolutely. All those things.
Yeah. Thank you. And thank you for bringing yourself so vulnerably in here, because I think we can just all tune in to that, your experience. You're on the extreme end of loss right now. Mm-hmm. And I think one of the things that COVID-19 has shown us, if anything, is that we're all very, very connected globally. And I appreciate you just letting us come in around you here.
Thank you.
Today. Thank you. Yeah. Anyone else like to share? Margaret, yeah, let me see if I unmute you there. Yep.
Thank you. I was in Karen and Sabrina's group, and I'm in Suzanne's Mysterial Woman first year program. And the thing that strikes me is, you know, I started the year in the program in November saying that I have just been coming down to like a standstill, just learning to just not do and to go slowly. So that felt like preparation for COVID-19. So I feel as though I know how to be sheltered in place now. Certainly didn't come naturally to me, but this is just a different level, just a different degree, and what I was sharing in the group was I have felt a permission to feel how much loss I've never felt in my life. And so just so much sadness and so much self-pity, a lot of self-pity, very, very young feelings. And there's a temptation, I have a temptation to judge myself, as I always have, which is the reason I've never felt these feelings. But I know how important, as you said, presencing, feeling and just allowing it and trusting that I can, move through this, and that in presencing my own grief, and it's just kind of, non-specific grief,
Well, one of the things, if I may just say, and thank you, Margaret, for bringing this in, is that this global trauma is, and we know this through trauma theory, we're not just figuring this out today, but it is it will trigger earlier trauma, right? Where we had uncertainty, where we didn't know how things were going to go, where we felt constrained, controlled. So therefore the self-compassion that's needed, or the tending to the self right now that's needed, and that's part of what Grapevine is offering, for example, and I offer in the work I do, and there are others, that there can be that holding right now, because it's to just plow through this time. From my point of view, that's a real loss. To try to get back to just where we've been before, well, first of all, that's not going to happen. So that's the reality. But even more important, I guess, is that a new world. There's a quote that I often use by Arundhati Roy, and she says, "Another world is not only possible, she is on her way. On a quiet day, I can hear her breathing." This idea that there's a new world coming that might be shaped based on different values, and certainly I believe those values have to now include the feminine as well as the masculine. So if we just go through this time right now, in that hyper-masculine driven way I started talking about, that heroic, we'll just, we got this, we're going to do this, we will have missed something. And I think what you're presenting, Margaret, is the tenderness, the personal tenderness of this moment, how you're needing to be very tender with, it's touching other deeper wounds for you. Yeah. Thank you for that. Yeah. So we're getting close to, how did we get to an hour already? But we almost are. And I do want to just say a couple of things that have been touched on already, but about like the core practices that I would recommend you have in place. And Sabrina talked about nature, and that is, we're lucky enough in Washington to be able to go out, and there's no question that being in connection and relationship with the natural world right now in this beautiful spring is nourishing, because it's a sort of metaphor. You see things die away in the winter, they come back in the spring. There's a life force there that reassures us that there'll be new life again on the other side of this. Now, what it'll look like, we don't exactly know. Some, like Sabrina, it's a massive uncertainty. So the healing time, if you can, exercise is, we know that physiologically is super helpful right now, whatever that is for you, whether it's online yoga or going for a walk every day, or something that keeps your system, your body moving. And then the other thing I just want to add is how you enter into your day? What's the tone you set when you go into your day? Do you just roll over and grab your phone and get going, or get the latest super depressing news about what's happening? Because that actually sets your nervous system in a particular path for the day. I'm going to suggest, if that is something you do, that you consider, what is a way I could go into the morning in a self-nurturing way, which might be meditating, it might be sitting quietly with a cup of tea, it might be getting up before the kids are going so that you can sit and read something inspirational or something that helps you connect with you. And some of you may already well have those practices in place, but they become more important than ever because they sort of set the container for us for how we go into the day. And again, I just want to say, let's not do business as usual. Let's see if this time can be a time for a reset, and this global pandemic a kind of portal taking us somewhere new. And so that's, I think we're completing here. I do want to tell you before I pass it back to Monica or Joni, whoever's going to complete here, that in response to this time, because all my other programs are already in motion, I've actually created an offer that I'm going to launch the beginning of May, which will be a weekly 7 weeks, especially for this kind of critical time right now, while we're going through this process. It's free for healthcare workers. It's a very low cost. It's basically a container. We'll be working in the emergent to help you really go through this in a way that deepens your own resilience. You know, really seeing what it is that's you're trying to actually let go of now, and what might be trying to be reborn. So I'll just put this link in the window, and my website is mrawoman.com. You can also find it there, but I'll just share this with you. For some of you, you'd be interested in this. And I would love to close with a poem after you're done, Monica, or Joni, whoever's going to speak now today.
Well, thank you so much, first of all, Suzanne, for sharing this hour with us and your time. And it was just beautiful. And it's just a strong reminder to be present and stay grounded and do as much self-nourishing as you can during this time, and find grace as well in the beauty that does surround us every day. And so thank you very much.
You're very welcome. I respect your network enormously and all that you're offering.
Thank you. And, you know, to that point, we would love to invite you into the Grapevine community if you haven't already joined through grapevinewomen.com. And we are offering many free classes during this time, during this stay-at-home order. And we hope you'll check that out. And we're also adding new classes regularly. So I'll just close with that, but we really appreciate you joining us. It's so nice to see so many beautiful faces today, and it makes our life so much fuller to share during this time. So Suzanne, we'd love to hear your poem. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Now I always like to close with a poem, and it's one of the feminine principles actually, that we know how to close a container, which this has been for us here. And this is recently written by Emma Zuck. It's called A Poem of Hope in the Midst of COVID-19. So whatever way you can just not be multitasking, you might want to close your eyes. You just let these words complete our time. With this open time, you do not need to write the next best-selling novel. You do not have to get in the best shape of your life. You do not have to start that podcast. What you can do instead is observe this pause as an opportunity. The same systems we see crumbling in society are being called to crumble in each of us individually. The systems that taught us we are machines that live to produce and we are disposable if we're not doing so. The systems that taught us monetary gain takes priority over humanity. The systems that create our insecurities then capitalize off of them. What if we became curious with this free time and had no agenda other than to experience being? What if you created art for the sake of creating? What if you allowed yourself to rest and cry and laugh and play and get curious about whatever arises within you? What if our true purpose is in this space? As if Mother Earth is saying, we can no longer carry on this way. The time is now. I am reminding you who you are. Will you remember?
Lovely. Thank you so much.
You are very welcome. Thank you all for coming live and being here today, this afternoon.
And have a lovely evening tonight.
Be well, stay healthy.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you for that
ladies.
poem.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Bye,
Thank you.
everyone.
Where's that poem from, Suzanne? I'd love to see that again.
Yes, I'm going to send it.
Is that yours?
I'll send it. Do you send out emails to your group?
I can do that.
It's called A Poem of Hope in the Midst of COVID-19 by Emma Zek, if that helps. I'm going to put it right. You know what? I'll put it in the chat for everybody. And then you can all have it.
Okay.
Let's see. Oh, it might be too long. Does it not want me to do that? No.
I can send it out, Suzanne, tomorrow.
Yeah, I think
Oh,
it's,
that'd be great. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll do that.
yeah, there's some beautiful creativity happening right now, music and poetry, and it's one of the beautiful things arising. All right.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks,
Have a lovely
everyone.
evening.
Have a nice evening.